My name is Paul Luna, and you're tuned into F&B Lunacy. I am here today with Chef Jarrett Stieber. Chef, tell us about yourself. Where are you working?
I'm Jarrett Stieber, chef and owner of Little Bear, restaurant on Georgia Avenue in Summerhill. And that's pretty much all I do. I wish I could give you more information about an exciting life, but as a restaurateur, there's not too much else at the moment.
How old or young is Little Bear?
We are just over a year old now. We opened on February 26th of 2020, about 2 weeks before the state of emergency. So our first year wasn't exactly what we expected, but we made it a year, and we're still, kind of limping along. So it's pretty good.
What type of cuisine are you doing?
Right now, we're actually cooking Jewish Chinese food. We started doing that in December as kind of a fun holiday menu. I grew up Jewish. My family would eat Chinese food on every major holiday. So around December, the landlords organized to have the Alliance Theater do their yearly Christmas Carol as a drive-in production on Georgia Avenue. So we knew there'd be kind of a holiday cheer and thought we'd do something a little fun. But we've kind of leaned a little more Szechuan with it. So it's a mix, kind of some Jewish stuff, some Szechuan food. And it's just been a lot of fun to cook. So we've just sort of kept doing it and plan to keep going until the momentum runs out and people get sick of it. And then we'll figure it out from there. I think the main thing, we source everything fresh from local farms in the area. The only purveyors we use really are for, the to-go materials and some dry goods and pantry items, but all the fresh product comes direct from farms in the area. So we just kind of keep that as the main ethos, and then try to be playful and whimsical with the food around that, whatever the specific genre might be.
Is there anything in particular that turns you on about food and cooking?
Well, in short, probably everything. It might be if there's anything that doesn't. I guess it's kind of boring food. I think I'd rather make something terrible than make something mediocre. So that middle ground is probably the thing that doesn't. But the rest of it, I think if you can't get excited and kind of turned on by what you're doing, there's really, whether it's food or anything else, what's the point of doing it?
Chef, what's important, taste or food presentation?
Taste first and foremost, but if you don't do both, I don't think you get very far. So it's kind of, one without the other. But taste first and foremost.
Are you a breast or a legs man?
Are we talking about food or? I think both for that. I don't know. If it depends on the dish. If it's fried chicken, I think breast, because I hate not knowing, with all the breading, you can't tell how the chicken was butchered, like where the bits of bone are going to be. So I'd rather honestly have like a boneless breast for like a big breaded fried chicken kind of thing. But definitely leg meat just for the pure quality of the fattiness.
What type of music do you enjoy listening to when you're not at work?
Well, we listen to plenty of music here too, but I'm more of a rock and roll guy at the core. I suppose I lean towards classic rock, that kind of thing, as sort of the main default style of music that I gravitate towards. Everything from the Beatles when I was younger to Jimi Hendrix Experience and Grand Funk Railroad and things like that.
Do you sing while in the shower, Chef?
A little less now, probably, just because it drives my wife and my dog crazy if I do it too much. But, a little bit. I listen to my podcast in the shower now. That's kind of the routine. I don't have a long commute to work or anything. So,
who do you listen on your podcast?
A couple different things. I'm kind of a sports nerd without being too much of a jock, I think. So I listen to hockey and soccer podcasts. I like Conan O'Brien's podcast for interview stuff. I think he's pretty funny. Just kind of a mix of a few things like that. A couple folklore and like legends podcasts. A mix of like extremely nerdy things and then some sports stuff. So the usual routine is kind of get home from work, take a shower to kind of get cleaned off, and then I just lay down in the bottom of the tub and drink a glass or two of wine and listen to a podcast and decompress.
Chef, do you do any cooking at home?
No, almost none. I do the chopping. My wife likes to cook at home.
Who was your inspiration?
Originally, it was Emerald, as embarrassing as it is in hindsight, watching Emerald live on TV when I was in junior high. So it kind of got me interested in cooking. His show was just kind of goofy and a little over the top, and he had this cool band. And so I started watching Emerald live and, throwing random stuff into canned pasta sauce and subjecting my parents to dinner. I think I was about 15 when I decided maybe I'll check out what it's like in a real kitchen, and started working at Alon's in Morningside on weekends and, legally, I guess, until I was 16 and could sign paperwork officially, and just kind of never really looked back and been, it was always either cooking or playing music, but cooking at least had a steady paycheck. So it just kind of took over my life.
Why did you become a chef?
At the time, end of high school, it was mostly about the money, I suppose. I was able to make more money off of, working in restaurants than I could playing music. And that's when I kind of fell into running this pop-up restaurant called Eat Me, Speak Me, which lasted for about 7 years almost by the time it was all said and done, which I never anticipated doing. But it just kind of kept going. I started planning for a restaurant because I actually enjoyed cooking again for the first time in a long time. And of course, as opening a restaurant isn't particularly quick or cheap. So I thought, maybe a couple of years of planning, we'll find a space, find some investors. And, 6 years later, it was like, okay, we found a space and some of the investors, so let's just go ahead and sign a lease and see what happens next. And 20 months after that, finally got the restaurant open, and here we are.
What instrument did you play?
Mostly guitar, but I'm fairly proficient with drums or keys if I need to. Bass, just anything with like strings and frets for the most part.
Is there a food-related product you eat that is embarrassing?
Yeah, probably. How much time do we have? I think probably the main one that jumps out to mind are those Jose Ole frozen taquitos. Probably not the highest quality meat going in there. I can only imagine what sort of layout they have. I just picture like a factory with a bunch of like metal cow udder looking things that just kind of usurp meat out of the little nozzles into the tortillas, something probably along those lines. But I don't know, they're tasty. It's quick, it's easy.
What does playing with yourself mean to you?
Well, I'm assuming the gist of it is to go in a little bit more of a tongue-in-cheek direction, but I think for me it's about looking at the food first and foremost, what we do here, and realizing your strengths and weaknesses, and knowing when to play into what's kind of the caricature of what people expect from you, from your restaurant, from your career, and what you feel you're capable of on a different level. So I would sort of approach it that way. Like, I know what people expect of Little Bear, of our food, of my food from the pop-up before this. They expect kind of playful, irreverent, satirical stuff, goofy menus, but at the end of the day, the technique still has to be there. So I think finding a way to, almost mess with yourself is what keeps people interested.
Tell us about the name Little Bear. How did that come about?
It's what my wife and I call our dog, Fernando. He's a Great Pyrenees, a big, fluffy, giant dog. And everybody always says he looks like a little bear. That's kind of the common thing that we hear is, oh, he's a little bear, So we were worried if we named the restaurant Fernando or Fernando's or something like that, it would sound like an Italian red sauce joint and confuse people. So we just went with Little Bear. And it's been kind of cool because, a lot of people call their pet Little Bear. Some people have their daughter, their son or something, they call Little Bear. So we hear that a lot from our guests. Like, I call so-and-so my family Little Bear. And then this restaurant opened. We figured we just had to come try it. It's like, cool. Glad we could, relate in some sort of way. But The funniest thing is always when Fernando is around the restaurant. Occasionally, if my wife will come by and pick me up from work and have a cocktail out front on one of the benches with Fernando and hang out for a few minutes while I get things wrapped up. And people who aren't familiar with the restaurant or know that he's kind of the mascot for the branding walk by and be like, "Oh, he's so cute. He's like a little bear." And then they kind of look up and look back at him, and you can sort of see the wheels coming together. And it's like, yeah, kind of like the dog on the front of the door that says Little Bear above it, huh?
Fill in the blank. Cooking
Yeah.
is
Cooking is exhausting. Cooking is a craft. And I don't know, cooking is a lot of fun at the end of the day. I mean, getting to play with your food in a professional setting could be a lot worse. It could just be, well, I guess I kind of am just doing paperwork all day long now. That's how it goes when you own the thing, but it still beats the hell out of sitting in a cubicle all day for me.
what do you enjoy doing when you're not working?
I like to play sports. I have a rec league soccer team that I'm a part of and a rec league hockey team. Haven't played during COVID, obviously, but now that we're getting closer and starting to get vaccinated and things like that, probably back on the horizon. I like to have an outlet away from sport or away from cooking, sorry, that has nothing to do with cooking. And, it's not with restaurant people. It's not around restaurants, not around bars. I don't have to think about it for a little while. It's, I get to hang out with my teammates, shoot the shit, get a little exercise, bump into some people, get out a little aggression so I don't get too pent up at work. And it's just a totally different world to be in for a little while. So I like to kind of get away from cooking, distance myself where I can.
Chef, what's important in your life?
Probably family first and foremost, which is becoming more and more of a priority at this point. Balancing that work-life dynamic is really important to me and something I'm trying to instill in my staff too, to pay attention to, because you can't be at your best at work if you're not at your best outside of it, and vice versa.
Is there anything that you would like to say that's important to you?
Well, I think the first thing that jumps to mind is trying to convince diners to be as trusting and open-minded as possible when they come to restaurants like Little Bear. And I also kind of want to remind people, especially after COVID, just how frail all of the things you love are, the businesses. We're all on thin ice, even in normal times. A restaurant is frankly just a pretty shitty restaurant or business model, I guess, just in general. Like, it's not very profitable, hard to make them work. And that's in a normal year. So you see through the pandemic how many people closed and couldn't make it or had to pivot and are doing something totally different just to have their business survive. It might not be what you fell in love with in the first place. And I think it should just kind of be a reminder to people that, if they want to show that they really love and care for small businesses, whether it's a restaurant or movie rental store or wine bar, liquor store, whatever, you have to just go out and spend your money there as much as you can within your means.
This is an odd question, Chef, unlike the others. Do you consider yourself a lunatic?
Oh, of course, I opened a restaurant. I think that's I might as well just walk around with one of those name tags that says I'm with stupid. And obviously a lunatic. I've been cooking for 2 decades, working in professional restaurants, and I haven't gotten out of it yet. So I guess if they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and hoping for a different result, then I'm about as insane as they get. So yeah, absolutely.